What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Warren. I am a banker here in London and a property investor across the UK. My goal is to live free and independently from property. So I'm looking for an income of £3,000 per month from property. If you're looking to live free and independently, like and subscribe to this channel. That is what my content is all about. So guys, we all know that housing in the UK is expensive business. It is not cheap to afford the deposit for a house. It's not even cheap to afford rent, especially when you come down south. But generally across the UK, it is a significant purchase in your lifetime. I've mentioned this multiple times on multiple videos, but buying a house for our grandparents especially, and to an extent our parents, was much more realistic of an aspiration to have in life during their time because property was a lot more affordable. I mean, my grandparents' house was below £25,000 when she bought it. Now it's worth round about £800,000. And that is a reality for us living in this day and time as millennials and Gen Zers, because we're the next generation who are going to be buying our houses over the coming decades, or even maybe not, due to the expense of them in general. It's hard out there, guys. So that's the context. You know, we've got an environment where property is high. It's at an all-time high, higher than it's ever been. Real wages in this country for the last, I'd say, 2 decades have really pretty much been flat, okay? We haven't had significant growth in wages in this country for a long time. And that was really kicked off by the 2008 global economic crash. And then after that, we've had stuff like Brexit, which has really been a slow puncher on the UK economy. And then we've had the C word, the global health crisis, and lots of other stuff that's compounded the issue when it comes to incomes and cost of living, whilst house prices have done that. So in that context, guys, how do you get into property with low amounts of money? Today, I'm going to talk about how I'd invest £10,000 to get started in property. And I might even turn this into a mini series, guys. Let me know in the comments what other amounts you'd like me to do, or jump up to 20, 30, 50, whatever it is. Let me know in the comment section below and I'll make a video on it. So let me give you some stats really quick. I mentioned at the beginning that property is expensive. The average property price in the whole of the UK right now is £289,000. In London, it's £542,000 for a property. So if you were going to buy a house to live in, say you was able to get a scheme, maybe the Help to Buy scheme, maybe shared ownership, maybe the 95% mortgage guarantee scheme. If you're able to basically be able to pay a 5% deposit, we're talking about between £14,500 and £27,000, depending on where in the UK you live. If you were looking to invest in one of those properties, so we're not talking about living in it, we're talking about buying it and letting it out. Obviously, that means now that you're going to have to come up with a 25% deposit instead of a 5% deposit. On average in the UK, if we're saying that you're going to buy a buy-to-let for £289,000, the average price of a house in the UK, £72,000. In London, that'd be £136,000. Then legal and lending fees, round about £6,000. And don't forget your stamp duty on top of that, guys. So when you add all of those costs together, your legals, your lending, broker fees, stamp duty, etc., if you're going to buy the average UK house to live in with a 5% deposit, you're starting at about £33,000, okay? In London, that's closer to £90,000. And if you want to do a buy-to-let on the average UK house at £289,000, that's £66,000 all in. In London, we're talking about £276,000. So that blows that 10K far clean out the water, guys. And I gave these specific average numbers in the UK to illustrate the point. It is expensive out there. So what can you do instead? What are some options? Well, I've got 3 options for you guys. Yes, property is expensive, but you can still make that £10,000 go some way and either buy a property or benefit from the income of the property. So option A, guys, is to get a 1 or 2 bed somewhere cheaper. As you know from my channel, I'm all about the north, specifically around the northwest, but you know, there's other areas of the UK where you can get a 1 or 2 bed for around about 100K. In this scenario, guys, you're gonna live in it, and I said we're gonna make this £10,000 go fast. So we'd be looking for a scheme, maybe the Help to Buy equity scheme or the shared ownership or the 95% mortgage guarantee scheme. 5% deposit, so 5% of 100,000 is £5,000. And then once you've added your legal fees, broker fees, stamp duty, you're gonna get to £10,000. Now, in terms of making an income from that, what you can do, guys, is to sublet a room. So really we're looking at a 2-bed, right? And obviously you've got to be the type of person who is comfortable with sharing your space. You'd have to get permission from the freeholder and the mortgage lender, especially if it's a flat. You need permission from the freeholder because you wouldn't own the freehold, and build up some cash over time from getting a rent in on one of your rooms. And you know, at a point in time where you have a little nest egg built up, go again. Now the pros are that you're on the property ladder and you own a home. I myself used the Help to Buy equity scheme to invest in the home that I live in. 5% deposit worked really well for me at the time, especially as affordability was a key factor. I had no savings, I had to start from scratch, didn't have money given to me from my parents, didn't have a trust fund or an inheritance, I had to save. And that 5% deposit really did help me because it's achievable and it's manageable. Now the cons are, unless you live in the north, east or the northwest or up north already, where properties are less expensive and you could get 1-2 bed for £100,000, that would involve relocating for a period in time. But that is a achievable, realistic way of getting on the ladder and making an income from your property, but it involves a degree of sacrifice. Option B, guys, is to partner up. Now this might be a bit more appealing for a lot of you out there. If you have £10,000 and you want to get started in UK property, with that amount, a good way is to partner up with somebody else who you can combine your funds with to come up with a deposit. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video, I aim for properties around about the £100,000 mark. For a buy-to-let, all in, all costs, you're talking about around about £35,000 for a £100,000 property. So you might know somebody who's also keen to get into property but doesn't quite have that £35,000. So you can combine your funds together and invest together. Now, what are the pros? Well, you're on the property ladder and you own an investment property that's going to grow over time. You can build up equity and release that at a stage in the future. And also you'll be getting a modest rental income off the back of that, because you're going to be sharing that income with the other person. The cons are, guys, that you really need to choose wisely in terms of who you partner up and invest with. I want to go into more partnerships from a property investing point of view. I want to join forces with other people and invest together and combine my funds. But guys, I am not going to invest with just anybody who wants to. I'm going to be very, very, very specific with who I invest, because it's a long-term financial partnership. It really is deep, guys, so you need to know who you're invested in. You probably want to have some sort of agreements in place as to what your future plans are, and contingencies. You want to spell them out. So if somebody wants to, for example, sell but you want to keep it, what are you going to do in that scenario? Do you buy them out or do you sell because one of you wants to? How would you handle a scenario with like non-payment of a mortgage? What if your partner runs into financial difficulty and they can't pay the mortgage? You're probably going to be jointly and severally liable, and that means that you're now responsible for the whole mortgage, even though the other person signed up to it at the time with you. All of that stuff needs to be thought through really carefully, guys, before you partner up with somebody else and invest in property. And then option C, guys, is rent to rent. Now you might have heard about this before. It's like very popular with a lot of property trainers out there. I even tried it, but I never got to the stage where I actually got a deal out of it, because I literally started it during the global health crisis. So we're talking about around about March 2020. And I really quickly realized that, hey, look, this whole thing that's happening in the world with places being shut down and locked down, people aren't traveling anymore, probably not a good time or environment to be doing rent to rent. But essentially rent to rent is you approach a landlord, somebody that owns a home, who for whatever reason might be in some sort of distress. So he might be struggling to fill it, he might be just tired of renting, he might be wanting, or she might be wanting to retire soon. So basically you say to them, look, I can guarantee your rental income for a period of time, usually they say 5 years. I'll pay you a guaranteed rent regardless of whether their property is full or not. You'll get this money every month like clockwork on this date and time. They say yes, and then you use their property for a higher yielding activity. So usually that's either a HMO or serviced accommodation. You pay them the rent that you're guaranteeing them, and whatever you make over and above that from the HMO usage or rent to rent, or serviced accommodation, that's a profit that you keep. Now the pros are that you can make a really good income using that strategy. It's a fast way to build a good wedge of money that you might want to then use to either do more rent to rents or buy an actual house and own it yourself. The Cons are that it is high risk. So, you know, we talked about using it for service accommodation. Say, for example, you go through a really difficult month or 2 months and you don't get anyone through the door and you're not making any money. You still need to pay the landlord their rent. So you could end up in a scenario where you're paying money, significant amounts of money, and not making any income during certain periods to cover that. So again, something that needs to be thought through. You want to get a property in a good location that's going to work well for the strategy that you're going to use it for. So guys, that is how I would invest £10,000 to get started in UK property and UK housing. What would you do with £10,000? What do you think of my ideas? Let me know in the comment section below. Like and subscribe for the algorithm, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.